All right, this will be the last presentation that we'll have on the Nazi Germany camp system. What begins now, shortly after the Germans had focused now on the Jews and to round up as many Jews as they can, they began developing something called the euthanasia program of 1939. Now, Hitler at this time began thinking of a way that he could efficiently kill all of those people that he had captured and that he would capture in the future and put them in camps. He targeted those that he classified as handicapped people. Now, those with disabilities were not sent to concentration camps because he felt that it would be too costly to house and to feed them. They were sent to hospitals for quote-unquote special treatment. Now, over 70,000 people were killed because they were deemed unfit for life, because they had a disability of some sort. Now, these killings, they were hidden from the public so that family members could not protest about it and get upset about this. Now, ultimately, it was this euthanasia program where a deadly gas called Zyklon B, that's where this Zyklon B was developed. And it was this gas that would later be used to kill 6 million Jews in the camps. When we talk about the stories of the mass killings of Jews in camps, and they were killed and they were gassed with this poisonous gas, it was Zyklon B, and it was developed in the euthanasia program that, again, that program was developed basically to get rid of people who Hitler thought had bad genes or bad either physical or mental illnesses. Okay, that's the euthanasia program of 1939. Now, as Germany began invading their neighboring countries, they built camps to put people that they did not want in their society. Now, these groups, I'm going to give you a huge list of these people because these groups were huge. So if you were to walk into some of these camps, some of the camps were designated specifically for Jews, but these other ones just had a variety and a mix of different people. Now, it could be prisoners of war, POWs could be in there. You could have people that were designated for slave labor. You kept them there just to do work. You had brothels, women that were kept there for sexual slavery, and these people would service. They would be used as sexual slavery for the German officers and the German military. There was ghettos also, ghettos for Jews, and these sometimes weren't actually camps themselves, but they would create a whole neighborhood where they would fence and keep all the Jews in. And this was really a temporary housing until they could put them in railroad cars and take them out to camps. Of course, we've talked about this before. Gypsies were rounded up and killed. We've talked about this other group, communists. They were taken out as well. When they invaded Poland, Polish intellectuals, people that were at universities, the thinkers of the society, they were rounded up and put into camps. You had resistance fighters from these areas. Now, these were not necessarily military. These were citizens who, once a country was taken over by the Germans, the citizens continued to do some guerrilla warfare tactics to try to disturb the German forces were there. So that's resistance fighters. You also had, like I said, you had homosexuals, gay men were rounded up. You had Afro-Europeans, so you had people of African descent that were living in Europe. Those were rounded up and put into camps. You had Catholic priests even were taken. If they weren't cooperative to the Nazi Party, they were taken and put into these camps. You also had Protestant pastors, so other Christian leaders were put in as well too. You had anybody who was critical of the Nazi Party was put in. Male and female, we talked about that, forced laborers. We had conscientious objectors were also thrown in. People who said, listen, I'm not going to go fight. I don't believe in war. I'm not going to fight. That's going to get you at one of these camps. Germans that were accused even of sexual relationships with somebody who is non-Aryan, they were put into camps. You had Jehovah's Witness, another Christian group that was singled out. You had Italian soldiers, those who had surrendered to the Nazis, they were thrown into camp. And ultimately, too, you had convicted criminals. So you could see in some of these camps, you could have a wide variety, and they actually had different patches, different star patches for these prisoners. They could be pink, yellow, purple, and of course the yellow ones were designated for the Jews. But depending on what type of a prisoner, you would have a patch as well. So you can see lots and lots of different people were thrown into these camps. Now, I do want to come back and talk about this quote again, because I think it's important to emphasize. First, they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. That was Hitler's plan. Take everybody out except for those who specifically he wanted in or that supported the Nazi Party. And as you can see, the Nazi concentration camp system, this was something that the Germans took years to develop. Now, to fit with their goals of German domination and purifying the Aryan race, they first developed camps to put people who did not support their goals, as well as people who didn't fit their narrow view of a perfect race. This ultimately you can see this led to the development of poisonous gas and mass killings, and this results in the killing of a total of 11 million people just in the camps alone. That doesn't include any battle. That's just in the camps alone. 6 million Jews and 5 million variety of different people. So now you understand, hopefully you understand a little bit better about the Nazi concentration camp system.